All right, so hello and welcome. We're going to continue our conversation about value and drawing pencils with our next worksheet in our packet, worksheet number 2, value scales. This is located inside of the Understanding and Applying Value packet that has been included in your kit. Our last lesson, we did worksheet number 1, pencil tests, where we took an opportunity to really discover and understand each of these pencils and what they can do by creating a short little light to dark shade or gradient. We did some cross hatching, noticing that the higher the number with the B pencil, the darker the pencil gets and the thicker the lead gets here. And then we took some time to describe the relationship of each pencil to each other in terms of hardness and lightness and softness and darkness. Okay, so if you have not had this conversation, please pause this video and go talk about that. We are going to now turn the page and begin working on worksheet number 2, value scales. So we just had a conversation as well through PowerPoint where we talked about what a value scale is, what a gradient is, but I want you to just look at this worksheet for a second. It looks like I'm asking you to create 2 value scales here and a gradient value scale here at the bottom. Now I have all of my pencils here, all of my drawing pencils, 2H, HB, B, 2B, 4B, and 6B. I also have, an eraser and this, a piece of paper towel. I'm gonna ask you to go and grab your supplies right now. If you don't have them, please again, pause this video and go collect your materials, including a piece of paper towel. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We're actually not going to use all of these pencils. We're only going to use the 2H, so pull that aside. And your choice between the 4B or the 6B. So I'm going to take my other pencils and put them off to the side. Again, the 2H we're going to use right up top. And then down here, you have the choice between a 4B or a 6B. I'm going to end up using both. So have those 3 pencils out for yourself. And again, a paper towel. Now, you might be thinking we're going to start right here with the 2H, but I'm actually going to ask you to start in the middle of the paper with the 4B or 6B pencil. I'm going to use my 4B for this because it's my favorite. I enjoy using the 4B the most, and I'm making that choice again to use the 4B. So I'm going to record my choice here that I am using a 4B pencil. So please do that. And down at the bottom, I want you to make a choice as well between 4 or 6B. I'll switch it up and I'll use the 6B down here. Okay. So to remind you, a value scale is the range of tone or value from light to dark, 1 being the lightest and 5 being the darkest. Before we start here, let's go ahead and label our value scale with percentages. So in terms of tone, in terms of value, 1 would be 0. Right, 0% of that value, where 5 would be 100%. Okay, and then we're going to increase by 25. So a 2 is a 25%, a 3 is a 50, and a 4 is a 75%. Okay, why is it 1 through 5? It just allows us to talk about value easier, right? So if I say you need to add more 5s, you know what I'm talking about. You know how much pressure, essentially, percentage of pressure, you can think of this to apply to the pencil. We're going to skip the 2H right now. We're going to go down to the middle. Like I said, we're going to start with the 4B. And the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to tackle our number 1. So what amount of value do we put in a number 1 here on our value scale? Nothing, right? Don't put anything. That box is done. Check. We've done it. If you put a value here, I'm going to take off a point. So please allow that to be 1, nothing, okay? Instead, we're going to jump to the opposite side and we're going to tackle our number 5. So again, I'm using a 4B pencil and I'm going to fill up this number 5 box with this dark, 100% of the value, as dark as I physically can go with this pencil. So go ahead and start to lay in your tone, start to establish that value. Drawing with graphite pencil is all about building up your value, building up your graphite on the paper. You're going to see that I'm going to change directions a lot with this, and I'm really being mindful that I am building in my value right to the edge of this box. I am going to grade you on this worksheet in 2 ways. First and foremost, I'm going to see if you can get the values that I'm asking you to get, right, and to match our value scale. Secondly, I'm going to be grading you on your craftsmanship. And I know we've talked about craftsmanship before in our class, but to remind you, craftsmanship is how well crafted something is. So I'm asking you to fill up this box, right? So we should not be going outside the box. I'm going to blend and it's going to get a little messy in here, but then I'm going to use my eraser to pull up around that area so I have really good craftsmanship. Also looking for you to create a really smooth, blended, beautiful tone. So do you see how I'm starting? I filled it up. It wasn't quite dark enough. Maybe on camera it looks really dark, but I can still see like the fibers of the paper. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to start to move it in like circles. Do you see that? Sort of the circular fashion to really work the graphite into the paper. I don't have to worry about going too dark because I'm trying to go as dark as possible in this section, right? Really working that in. And you should feel and see that it's greasy. Do you see that? And if I move this around, you should be able to see that little bit of a shine happening. Graphite is shiny and it can play some tricks on our eyes. But we really want to establish that deep, dark, solid 5. Okay. All right. So now that I know where I'm going, this is my destination of a 5. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to do my 2, 3, and 4 building as I go. And this is where you're going to need that paper towel. I'm going to show you how to blend within each of these sections. Now a 2 is going to be as light as we can go with that value. This is a 1, it's nothing. 2 is going to be just a little tiny bit with our value. I'm going to sharpen my pencil up, get a little bit better of a point. And before I get that 2, I'm actually going to grab a sticky note for myself. Some scrap paper, and I'm going to get my hand going and I'm going to see if I can get really soft like that. Something, oh, I hit the camera with my hat. I'm wearing a witch hat right now for Halloween. Nope, again. All right, so again, let me try that one more time. Get my hand going, get the right angle of my pencil. All right. So I'm barely trying to touch the paper, trying to lay in a nice tone, barely any pressure, but I do need to fill up the whole section. All right, there's a really nice 2. Okay, but can you see, if I hold this up here, there, sorry. Can you see like the scratchiness though, right? I have like lines going one direction and then the other. I don't want that. I want it to just be a tone, like it's printed, like this one. So I'm going to take my paper towel now to blend. Now I know we should probably talk about that. I'm gonna flip this over. And I'm going to add a value here. If I do that more than once, I want you to flip your paper, try this out before you do the other side. Add some value. If I take my finger and I try and blend it, I can. Now I'm going to call this blending, right? I'm sort of smudging it. And I'm working those particles of the graphite into the paper. Remember, graphite is stone, it's crumbling. And it's working into the paper itself, correct? But, oh, that's awful. I hate, oh my goodness, my finger's all dirty from this process. And do you see the shine, right? I don't know about you, but I don't want that, right? What if I touch, look at, see my fingerprints? What if I touch another part of my paper? It's gonna get all messy. I wanna stay nice and clean because I want the graphite only where I want the graphite, right? So I'm gonna use my eraser to clean off my finger a little bit. Instead of using my finger to smudge, we're going to use the paper towel. Okay, and this is a ripped up piece of paper towel from the classroom. Do you see the fiber of that paper towel, the tooth of the paper? That is going to grab that graphite and move it a lot quicker So this is actually going to be a lot faster to smudge, to blend with paper towel than it is with just your finger. All right, we're going to talk about a tool called a tortillon later, after we talk about our worksheets when we get to our project. And that's going to be an even better tool, but we're going to use paper towel. But here's how I'm going to ask you to have control over this paper towel. I'm going to wrap it actually around my finger like this. I'm going to move this paper so you can see it more easily. I'm going to wrap it around my finger like this. And then I'm going to grab all of this extra paper and I'm going to bring it and I'm going to gather it in my hand down here. I want it just to be around my finger, right? Because I want some control. So when I come in here, I'm going to, watch how I move more quickly, so much faster to blend that way. And the graphite does go onto the paper towel, right? But not on my finger, so I get to stay cleaner. This is actually going to be much better for your paper itself because there's oils in your fingers. If you blend with your finger, the oil, maybe the lotion, whatever, perfume on your hands is going to, you know, not be so great for the paper. This is going to keep it a lot cleaner. Okay, but please do not do this. Don't take the paper and crumble it up. Do this. I see students all the time, like looking around the room, chatting with their friends. Don't do that, right? There's no control over that. Even if I do this and I'm like really doing, like, no, come on. I'm gonna put my finger back in there. Wrap it around your finger so you have that control. You have the pressure, the targeted pressure. Sometimes your finger will bust through the end and that's okay, but be mindful of the fact that you are using that paper towel. I'm gonna open this up. I want you to see how there's graphite on that paper. Because when I flip back over here, I don't want that, look how dark that is. I don't want that there, right? So I'm going to use a different part of my paper towel to be able to come in and to blend what I've just done. So you saw I started circular, right? And then I'm starting to go up and down and move it all around. I'm really trying to get those particles of the graphite into the fibers, into the tooth of the paper itself. All right, and that looks like a pretty good tube. I'm going to grab my eraser though, and I'm going to pull up the graphite that is all the way around the edge because again, I'm grading you on your craftsmanship. All right, looks like we're ready for our 3. To get that 3, I'm going to build up. I'm going to try and apply a 2 all the way across. Sort of matching, right? And then I'm going to add a second layer of graphite. I'm going to come back and I'm going to push a little bit harder and add that second layer. I'm going to turn my paper, make my life easier so I don't have to move my wrist around so much. Adding that third layer. I really want there to be like 1 to 2 to 2 to 3. I want there to be a jump. I don't want to go too dark over here though, right? I can always add more graphite, another layer. It's really hard to pull up a layer because if I go and pull that up, I have to do the whole thing or there's going to be really harsh line. So I want to add layers as I go. I'm going to take my paper towel now again and I'm going to blend starting circular. And then I have to avoid that edge now because I don't want to ruin my 2 and apply that. Being messy, I'm going outside the lines on every direction because I'm going to erase it anyway, right? If I take this paper towel now from the 3 and go back to try to blend the 2, I'm going to pick up that graphite and add it over here, right? I don't want that to happen. Notice also the graphite is on the paper towel now or on your finger and not on the paper. So I'm actually going to take my pencil, I'm going to hit it one more time with a little bit of graphite. And as I'm really even, I don't have to blend again. A lot of students think that you have to blend, the last thing you do is to blend with paper towel. It's not the case. You're going to blend here with the graphite itself. All right, that's looking good. Now we're going to clean him up. I'm going to come in with my eraser on that edge and pull that up. If you want to wait until you're done with the whole value scale, that's fine. I'm just doing it as we go to really highlight the fact that I want to see good craftsmanship. All right, so let's go ahead and do our next one here, number 4. And on this printed value scale, this 4 is really, really dark. Let me grab my other value scale here. Do you see how that is a little lighter, right? So I'm gonna aim for this sort of thing. This is a little too dark for what I'm asking, and I'm so sorry that this is printed this way for you. I tried my best to find the best photocopier, and this is what I was able to do. But again, it should be a little bit lighter than that. But we wanna bridge this gap between the 3 and the 5 right here. All right, so we're gonna add our next level of value. Okay. So I'm going to add that level. I'm pushing a little bit harder, going a little bit quicker, a little bit more confident now. Adding in sort of the 3 I have, and then I'm going to push a little bit harder again. Add my next level. Turning my paper. All right. And I'm going to stop and I'm going to blend again into my 4. Do you see that waffle texture there? Do you see that? That's from our hatching from the page before. It's okay. This is sort of matching now, isn't it? So I'm going to hit it again with my value. And my 4 should be really dark, but not blended like that, not so deep. And I'm going to try and work my best to make sure that each of these is a different value. Right, I don't want them to be too similar. So if I notice that my 3 was too dark, I would have to go ahead and lighten it. I think it's probably pretty good. I'm just gonna add more value to sort of allow this one to be its own person over here. Okay, and I think I'm pretty good. So I'm gonna erase to sort of see, and then I'll make a judgment call. All right, what do you think? I think that's pretty good. I could add a little more, but I think I'm gonna leave it at that. And that is our 4B value scale. So in this value scale, I'm really trying to match the one that I see above, right? 4B down here. 4B or 6B, excuse me. I think you have the choice, right? So if you use a 6B, it was really easy to get these dark values. It was a little bit harder to get that 2. Okay, so now I'm going to transition to my 2H, and we're going to repeat that process up top with the 2H, but you're going to notice some major differences. First and foremost, you're going to realize that the 2H is not going to be able to get that 5. It's just simply never going to be able to be dark enough, right? If I go back to our last worksheet here, you can see that, right? The 4 and 6B can really get that 5. The 2H really cannot. So we're going to do it as dark as it can, but it's not going to be able to match that 5. So maybe you're like, well, Schroeder, why did you print this here? Why are you making me do a value scale to get a 5 and a 2H? If it can't, well, because I want you to have this experience. I want you to be uncomfortable. I find this pencil extremely uncomfortable for blending, and I want you to feel it. I want you to have that experience, so that way in the future, when you know you have to get a 5, you're not going to reach for this pencil, honestly. So let's go ahead and start with our 1. What do? Nothing, right? Over in our 5, we're going to go as dark as we can, 100% pressure of this. But here's what we need to do. We need to transition a little bit. I actually want you to take this paper. Don't rip it out of your packet. And I want you to leave it flat like this. Okay? So I'm going to push this over out of my way. Because we're going to press really hard, we might even rip through the paper with this 2H pencil. Because remember, H stands for hard, right? And scratchy. And I don't want you to rip through into the other parts of the packet. So I have it sort of open, right? That way it's out and away from us. In a normal, quote-unquote, school year, I would give each of these papers alone. This is in a packet. If you're watching this in the super future, away from 2020, then I probably have these printed for you separate, so this doesn't matter to you. All right, so let's go ahead and establish our 5. Oh, already, yikes. You can hear it, it's louder, right? and it's so scratchy. It's going to be exceedingly difficult to not have these scratchy lines, but with the 5, we're going to really work this into the paper, so maybe they'll be hidden. It'll be more difficult in our 2, 3, and 4, our midtones. Okay, so take a few minutes. And really work this in. Try and go as dark as humanly possible with this 2H pencil. And you're going to start to notice you can get pretty dark with it actually, but it's still like kind of a 3, isn't it? But look at what's happening to my paper. Do you see how it's sort of buckling? I'm compressing the fibers of the paper, and do you see it? It's like wavy, right? Look at the back. Do you see the disruption of the paper there? It's sort of wavy. I'm compressing it so hard by pushing so hard with such a hard piece of graphite that it's ruining my paper, honestly. You're also going to notice with your 2H that you cannot blend. Do I need to right here? No, because I'm just going really dark. But over here, you're going to notice that no matter how much you blend with the paper towel, it's never going to move around because the graphite just simply isn't crumbling. Okay, so I want you to feel and discover that as well. All right, that's good for now for my 5, level 5 with my 2H. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go ahead and do my level 2. And I'm going to try and be as light as possible. And this is going to be scratchy, but it's going to be able to go like super duper light. Remember, we skipped the 1 because 1 is 0, 0%, nothing there. And I'm going to try to get a really nice even tone, but it's going to be rather difficult to stay smooth and not so scratchy. If you wanted to try to blend, just don't get this value on there. So maybe I'll do it this way. Find a nice clean spot. You can try and blend. It makes a little bit of a difference, but not the same way it did for down here. And that's even almost too light, isn't it? I might hit that with some value again in a little bit, but I'm going to move over to my 3. And again, I'm going to start with a light value. I'm not just pushing harder right away. Starting with a lighter value. And then I'm going to build up. Maybe I'll keep going this way. And then I'll add a secondary value, or layer, excuse me. Again, I can try to blend, find a nice clean spot of your paper towel. It helps a little, but it really doesn't do too much. If you see any gaps like that, fill it in. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my 4. I want to bridge that gap between the 3 and the 5. And I think this is sometimes the hardest one to get because it is, like, I want to be dark, but I can't be that dark, right? So it's sometimes hard to show a difference between those two. But you can do it. You want to keep each stroke really close together. You don't want to move your pencil too quickly away from the last line you drew, because then you'll see the line itself instead of it just being like an overall tone. So right now that's sort of almost too similar to the 3. I'm going to keep adding my value. But I don't want to polish it or burnish it into the paper like I did with the 5. It takes so much longer than the 4 or 6B, doesn't it? Okay, I feel like that's a good place to stop. So again, I can get that values from 1 through 5, like a transition, right, between each, but it's going to just be overall much lighter than this printed one here. And again, I wanted you to feel that experience between the 2H and the 4B. I so much more prefer this one. What is this pencil good for, the 2H? Why do we need it in our kit? Why do we need it for our drawing class? Well, primarily this is going to be used for creating contour lines for edges and things like that. We're not going to use this for blending, for shading as much. Maybe even like hard lines like whiskers or something like that that we need. All right. All right, so I'm going to flip this back up because I don't need to worry about my paper so much anymore. I'm going to put my 2H pencil down, and I'm going to grab my next pencil for down here, the gradient, which I'm going to use a 6B. This is the last thing we're going to do on this page. So to remind you, a gradient is a steady increase or decrease in value or tone. Here you can see a gradient. It's rather dark from the printing, but you can see it's going from white to black, the lightest value to the darkest, and it has an easy transition, right? There's not this segment that we have up there. An easy transition. So I want you to recreate what you're seeing here down at the bottom. And I'm going to use 6B, and I'm going to have a really hard time getting that light value, but this is going to be mad easy down here to really go dark. So that's the trade-off between the 4 and the 6B. It'll be a little bit easier to get that lighter value, but I wanted to show you the difference in pencils anyway. I do want you to leave a space of lightness over here of a 1. On this section, I'm grading you on your ability to create this easy, beautiful gradient transition, but also to have each value represented without a segment, right? And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So we're going to leave that light area there, and instead we're going to coat this entire area with a 2, okay? And I'm going to bring this over, I'm going to practice, get my pencil ready to go. I'm going to practice, and then I'm going to, leaving some space, going really, really, really light, right? And then I can be a little bit more casual over here. I want to sort of add that 2 all the way across. This is a really big space to fill up. So I'm filling in any areas that I see that I didn't hit once, right? I'm just sort of trying to get 1 value all the way across, a 2 all the way across. And then I'm going to use paper towel. I'm going to grab a new piece of paper towel. Again, I'm going to wrap that around my finger. I'm going to start over here. And since this is all like a 2, I'm going to be able to go back and forth and work this into the paper. And over here, I want to allow it to sort of dissipate into the light 1. All right, now that I have my 1 and my 2, my 3 is going to start there. So I'm going to add a second layer of value up until right about sort of there. And I want you to notice I'm not stopping at a dime. I am like creating this sort of jagged sort of line, right? Adding that 3 across. And if you wanted to, again, you can blend, but don't go over here anymore because I have more values. If I do this and I bring it up, then I'm going to make this a 3 also, right? Because I get dirty here. So I'm going to start right there on that edge. And then I can really go over here, but I don't want to transition all the way back because I don't want to grab that value and bring it over there. All right, because look at that. All right, I don't know if that's dark enough just yet. I might hit it again, but I'm going to also establish my 4. So my next value up, my 4. I don't even think this is a 4 yet, is it? It's sort of like a 3. So I might want to bring that value up here a little bit further. And I'm sort of looking at this value scale, right? This is a little too dark. And now I'm going to want to bridge that gap, but I don't really know how dark I need to go. So I'm actually going to pause on this like transition, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to establish, bam, I'm going to establish my darkness. And my darkness, my full 5 is sort of going to go up till here, right? So I'm going to go in, look at how I'm moving my pencil in these like circles, right? I'm going to go in and I'm going to move that graphite into the darkest realm. But I'm not creating a hard line. Watch when I do this, I'm going to sort of lighten up now. And you can see I'm blending, but not with paper towel. I'm blending with the graphite itself. I'm applying that graphite in like light layers to sort of bridge that gap. That's the bell for period 5. Bridging that gap. And I'm going to work on this transition. And if I see some area, do you see that? I might go in. See, I might add a little bit of value. I have to get ready for my next class. That sort of thing. When you're done, pull up the value that escaped from that blending process. And that's about that. All right, so you should be able to have your 4B value scale, 4 or 6, 4 or 6 down here, a gradient, and then a 2H value scale up top, okay? And when you're totally done, make sure you sign it, take a photo, and submit to Schoology. I will see you next time.